burning passion, a deep longing, an unwavering will to obtain. It's called desire. Hello. Welcome to another episode of BigTalk. I'm your host, Raven, and today we're going to be talking about a little thing called desire. In essence, what is this thing, right? And how do I manage it in daily life for my own sake? Right, so let's define it, right? It's defined as a strong feeling of wanting to have something or wishing for something to happen. Right, a strong feeling of wanting to have something or wishing for something to happen. But to understand this principle, we first must, sort of touch on the principle of balance, right? So understand that people in general want to feel whole about themselves, about their lives, about their relationships, etc. Regardless of their circumstance, people want to feel their best in some way or another, right? And desire is sort of one of the main driving forces of achievement in life, right? But there's a formula to it, right? If you truly want to be able to control or manage your desires, for the best case scenario, you have to sort of understand this formula, right? So, and I feel like there are really three main points in the desire formula, if you will, right? And these things aren't chronological, right? They don't have to be in a set certain order. But I think that all of these three things must be present in order for desire to exist. And if you understand these three things, then you can better manage desires for yourself. All right, so the first thing, one must be conscious of lack, right? You have to perceive in your heart that you're lacking something, that there's something that you don't have, right? Perceive lack or be conscious of lack, right? The second thing is that you must have the perception that a thing or an object or a person, whatever, you must have the perception that this thing will manifest completeness in you, right? It'll bring about a certain emotion that you want. For example, it may make you happy. It can bring about a certain feeling, a certain sensation, right? You have to perceive that obtaining this thing or obtaining this object will make you feel a desirable way. Right, so first, be conscious of lack, and two, have the perception that in gaining the thing that you're lacking, you'll feel better about yourself. Then sets in this feeling of wanting, right, and this is what we call desire. Right? So all those three things. So to break it down, here's a short story. Let's go ahead and talk about 8-year-old Timmy, right? So Timmy has a bunch of toys. He plays with his toys all the time, and he loves it. He has a good time. Right? But he turns on the TV and he sees a commercial of this new toy that he doesn't have. Right? And he sees the kids on the TV playing with that toy. They're having so much fun with it. The smiles on their faces, the excitement, the joy. Right? It's radiating off the screen and he can feel it. And he wants to feel like those kids, right? And he thinks in his mind, be it consciously or subconsciously, that this toy will make him feel the same way that those kids that he's watching are feeling, right? He's perceiving that the emotion of happiness will manifest if he has this toy. The emotion of excitement will manifest if he has this toy. Now, Timmy wants the toy. This is desire. He had to be conscious of lack, aka he doesn't have the toy. And he had to perceive that obtaining the toy will make him happy, right? Because he saw the other kids having fun with the toy. And then the feeling of wanting the toy came in, which we call desire, right? But desire, like any other spiritual rule, right? They're all non-specific, right? They're non-selective formulas, right? They make no exceptions. They don't pick favorites. They just are as they are. So depending on the circumstance, satisfaction of desire can be quote-unquote good or bad, right? Satisfying your desire or the pursuit of satisfying your desire can be good or bad. But the equation itself isn't good or bad, right? Desire itself really isn't good or bad. It's like a mathematical equation, right? There's input and output. The formula is not selective. It's not compromising. It's not accommodating to the person solving the equation. The equation just is, right? Data is input. It's ran through a formula, and output's generated, right? That being said, just because you have a desire doesn't mean that you should seek its fulfillment, nor does it mean that the product of fulfillment is good, right? So, in a perfect example of this, it could be something like sexual desire, right? Not the physical act of sex, right? But the desire of sex, right? Quasi-lust, if you will. I'm making up words, quasi-lust. Right, so it's in virtually every music video, it's an advertisement, it's everywhere, right? Sexual desire. But let's be more specific. Let's talk about a circumstance that people understand. Infidelity, cheating, stepping out, right? We know what this is. I think most adults have had some experience with it or know someone with experience, in this issue, right? But infidelity, cheating. Now, just a note, before I give this example, full disclosure, I am well aware that any gender, and probably all genders in some form or another, can and do cheat, right? Can and do have infidelity issues, right? But in an effort to make this explanation digestible, we use a very, very stereotypical case, right? So let's talk about John, right? John is mid-30s, married, career, kids, whole shebang. But John's been with his wife for 15 years. And they've had kids. And they've done just about all they could do. They've traveled, they've had all the dates, they've had all the conversations. And, things are getting a little dry. He's not necessarily lacking in the bedroom, but things, you get used to a person, right? Familiarity is the enemy to mystery. When you get used to something, it destroys mystery. It destroys spontaneity. Right. So he's been with her for 15 years, and he's gotten used to her. They've had all the conversations, and things are just a little stale. Not bad. There's no problems in the relationship, but it's just it's not new. There's no newness. Right. So John goes out to a bar with his friends, right? He's got one night away from the kids, right? So he's out at a bar with his friends. A woman approaches him, right? And she's beautiful, and he's been drinking, and they've, all of them have been drinking, and she has all the right conversation, and she smells good, and her hair's done, and all the jazz, man, all the jazz, just like in the movies. And suddenly, John has this feeling, right? It's as if someone struck a match on his back, right? Like his whole stomach has been turned upside down, right? This warm sensation encompasses his body. He's experiencing desire. It's not necessarily, a bad thing that this feeling comes, right? It doesn't mean that there's problems in his relationship. It doesn't mean that, he's a bad person. It doesn't mean that she's a bad woman. It's sort of a natural thing that occurred in him. This is not to make any excuses for infidelity, right? John has two choices. What he chooses will govern, the morale of who he is. And it all depends on what he wants, right? It all depends on his defined purpose of himself and his defined direction in life. So he has two choices. He can take it further with this woman, assuming that, that's on the table for him. He can take it forward with his woman and, cheat and do that whole shebang and take that risk. Or he can let her know that he's married and doesn't want to take it a step further, cut his losses. But those are his choices, right? So overall, this is an example to show that desire itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. Right? And we can't necessarily be blamed for what we want or blamed for how we feel. It's sort of natural, it's sort of primitive. But our actions, once embracing the feeling of desire, right? Our actions are our own choice. We have free will. So our actions are up to us, and that will determine, quote unquote, if we're good or bad, not the actual desire itself. The first thing that John should do, and the first thing that anyone should do, period, when they have a desire, is first evaluate themselves, right? Who am I? What do I want? And what's my direction in life? What's my purpose in life, right? What's my mission? What kind of train am I riding? Right? So evaluate yourself and decide what you want. And the second thing is you should embrace the emotion, right? You should never bottle a feeling or bottle an emotion, right? It only leads to regression. It only leads to resentment. It's not a good thing, right? You should always embrace your feelings, accept them for what they are. That's just life. Accept things for what they are. So first evaluate yourself, accept the emotion, and then go ahead and decide what you should do based upon who you are and based upon your purpose. So firstly, evaluate who you are and your direction of purpose in life, right? And then 2, embrace the emotion. Don't ever shy away from it or try to bottle it up. Go ahead and embrace it, accept it for what it is. I'm not necessarily saying evaluate it or dive too deep into it, but accept it for what it is. Experience it, feel it, right? And then decide what you want to do that is based upon your direction, your purpose in life, right? You evaluate it, and now you're going to move forward with a decision that aligns with your gravy train, with a decision that aligns with where you want to go and what you want to do in life, right? So, let's say if John's purpose was to, if he felt like, he wanted to experience life, accepting all consequences. He wanted to have as much fun as possible. He wanted to love and do all these things as much as possible, regardless of consequence. And he should go ahead and cheat on his wife. He should go ahead and do it. Do your thing, man. Is that right? In my eyes, probably not. But according to his purpose, according to his direction in life, that's what he should do. Right? And if his purpose in life is to, live the whole married life, man, be married, have his kids, have his family, and have a sense of integrity in terms of monogamy, right? Then he shouldn't. He should cut his losses. He should walk away from that situation, and he shouldn't cheat on his wife. You know what I'm saying? So, and we can judge that as good or bad in terms of the action, but the desire itself is can't be judged. This is further exemplified by an author by the name of David Dita. Right? He wrote a book called The Way of the Superior Man, and in one of his chapters entitled "You Will Often Want More Than One Woman," right? And he says, and I quote, "Any man with a masculine sexual essence will desire sexual variety. Even if he loves his intimate partner and is completely committed to her, he will naturally want sexual occasions with other women besides his chosen intimate partner. Now, how a man deals with his desire for other women is up to him. He should know, however, that there is no way to avoid such desires. He should also know that acting on such desires, though temporarily enlivening and exhilarating, often ends up complicating his life far more than the occasion itself is worth." Right? And further on, he says this, "But this desire is not an excuse for promiscuity, any more than your enjoyment of TV is an excuse for becoming an obese couch potato. Desire springs from many sources, such as your addictions, your biological heritage, your childhood conditioning, and your open heart. To live a life of impeccable integrity, you must discriminate the source of your desire, so you know when to discipline your behavior for everyone's benefit, including yours. It's your call. Just remember that self-discipline is not self-suppression. Suppression is when you resist and fight against your desires, keeping them as buried and unexpressed as possible. Self-discipline is when your highest desires rule your lesser desires. Not through resistance, though, but through love and action grounded in understanding and compassion. Your desire for other women is not a reflection of any lack in your intimacy. It is a reflection of your nature as a masculine sexual being." And that goes back to what I said earlier, right? He said again, your reflection of your desire for the woman is not a reflection of any lack in intimacy. It doesn't necessarily mean that he had any problems with his wife or he had any problems with whatever in his life, but he first perceived that the lack of newness, and I think that's what it is for a lot of people when it comes to infidelity. I could be wrong, but I feel like that's not. When I talk to a lot of people, I feel that that's the thing. I think newness, mystery, the element of surprise, right? Being spontaneous. I think when you don't know what to expect, when something is so fresh and new, right? It's good to a lot of people. And I think for a lot of infidelity issues, it's not a notion of problems in intimacy or problems in communication or whatever. I think a lot of times it's just newness. Why a lot of men make these rash decisions, make these quick decisions to go out and step out. Whatever, regardless of why, I don't want to get into that whole jazz. I think newness is important. I think newness is important in terms of establishing a desire. I think desire can a lot of times stream from newness. So the lack wasn't in intimacy or in the relationship. The lack was just in newness. The lack was in surprise. He's been with her for 15 years. I mean, come on. He knows everything. He can probably complete her sentences. That can get a little boring for people. And then he perceived, from how she presented herself, that it would make him feel better, right? We know the feeling of dating someone new. It's always, it coined the term honeymoon phase, right? Or puppy love. When you get with someone new and all those emotions are flying around, right? And why is that such a good thing? It's because it's new. It's because it's refreshing. It's because there's this element of mystery that's present, right? And then the feeling of desire hit him. But how he deals with desire is up to him. And you can judge his decision. But again, to reiterate, we should first evaluate who we are. Second, understand desire and accept it for what it is. And third, make a decision that aligns with our purpose and direction of who we want to be. All in all, I think desire is very manageable as long as you first understand the principles of it and accept it for what it is. I think the case can be made for John and anyone else dealing with desire. It doesn't necessarily have to be sexual. I think that's just a narrative that people understand. But any desire in life, I think that for anyone, it can be very well managed, effortlessly managed with anyone in life, in any aspect of life, as long as we understand the principles of desire and deal with it in a healthy way. And that is acceptance of the emotion, evaluation of ourselves, and moving forward according to who we are and what we want to do, right? Again, the emotion of desire shouldn't necessarily be judged because just emotion, you can't really blame people for how they feel. But you can blame them for their actions. So you're not wrong to have a desire to do something. No matter, and we can, get deep into it and talk about where the desire may come from, why you feel that way, whatever. That's neither here nor there. What's important is that you are feeling it. So don't deny it. You're feeling that way. Accept it for what it is and move forward. Moreover, I think that now you've learned how to manage desire in a healthy way. This is BigTalk. Thank you for listening.